about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
So I've been asked if I know what's been going on in Cincinnati. Have you guys been hearing about this? Apparently, residents of North Side, Clifton, and Camp Washington neighborhoods have been hearing weird sounds. Apparently, it's being reported as a siren-like oscillating noise that has been going on for, I think, over a month. And residents are like, excuse me, what the hell is this? You know, I don't hear voices. I don't hear sounds. But if there was something outside my window making a noise, I could see why people would think I was crazy. So I believe people first, because I really do think there's a lot of things out there that are making weird noises. Unfortunately, nobody is believing these residents of Cincinnati. And apparently there's a bunch of them. And these noises are said to be louder and more noticeable at night. According to WKRC in Cincinnati, right? Not WKRP. WKRC, Clifton resident Sean Harold says, we were hearing the siren-like quality noise, whirling, I think that's a misspell, oscillating, going up and down. Sounds like a UFO to me. And he said, my son came up to me and said, Dad, the tornado sirens are going off. And the dad said, no, usually it starts about 10 p.m. and it could go till 3 a.m., 4 a.m., but it's quite unpredictable. His son, Elijah, said, it kind of stresses me out because I don't know what it is. It's kind of scary. Now, I guess the father spent one entire night tracking down how many times he heard the noise going on and off. The duration of the noises can vary anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. He says, I feel like it's definitely like a foreign sound. This is according to Northside's Brendan Markham. He says some nights it would be a little louder. Some nights it would be a little quieter. They say it kind of stresses me out because I don't know what it is and it's kind of scary. Now, I know people are worried, is this like the Havana syndrome? Is somebody using weapons? No, because with those, you were feeling pretty ill and you had a headache and you got pretty disabled. This is a bunch of residents are hearing sounds and nobody's explaining to them or telling them what it is. And so they're going to social media. Is this supernatural? Are we looking at UFOs? Is this biblical? On Reddit, some people blame the local recycling plant. So they think River Metals Recycling might be making noise. I don't know. I don't live in Cincinnati, so I'm not really sure or aware of what those sounds would be. Some people think it's a failing turbocharger on a diesel train engine or a freight rail yard. I guess, and I understand at night sounds can go farther than, what we'll hear during the day. But what's interesting is when WKRC reported that an anonymous source sent recordings, right? And they sent recordings of like a locomotive saying that's what made that sound. But that's not the sound that people are hearing. They're hearing something different and nobody can replicate it for people to look back and say, all right, this is what I think it is. Now, can there be a virus that affects everybody's hearing? Yes. Is everybody getting otitis media, a bacterial infection of the ear? Could that be making a whooshing sound? No. The problem is nobody has felt this. Nobody has seen this before. So I'm not sure. I wish I could tell you guys more. I wish I knew more, but this is up for city officials to figure out. In fact, what city officials have recommended is that residents report the noise to 311. Do not call 911 if you hear the whoosh or whatever that sound is. I wish I could replicate it. I just don't know what they're hearing. Part of me wants to go down there so I can hear it. So 311 is the city's non-emergency line. If we get any updates for you, we will tell you. So, I notice as I get older that I listen to things that I never thought I would listen to. My hearing is getting worse. My hearing is definitely deteriorating because, I had great mommy hearing. But on the other end, I'm noticing that things I would not pay attention to, I'm not paying attention to. Because ignorance is bliss. And I'm walking around when I was younger and, I'd hear a sound. I'm like, okay, UFO, whatever. Now I'm like, whoa. Okay, I don't trust anything that's going on now. I don't trust anything, and I want to know what's going on. And so I will wake up more in the middle of the night. I will hear things. I mean, I've been able to really get back to rhythm with my sleep, and I haven't needed any melatonin or anything for my sleep. But when it comes to sounds in the middle of the night, is it the air conditioning vent? Is it the dog? Is it the cat? And, for people getting scared, see, one thing that helps me are pets. I love having pets with us. They all want to sleep in our bed. As much as I want to tell them, no, sleep in your doggy bed, I don't mind that they sleep on the bed because they provide protection for me. Anytime my husband's out of town and I think I hear footsteps or I think I hear a sound, if there's somebody in the house, my dogs go ape poop. I mean, they would be barking and going. I mean, even if I have a family member come into the house, they go crazy when they hear the garage. So I know I have that extra security. Plus the cats will all scatter and run once because they pick up on things. And so when I do hear these noises, or I hear noises, I don't hear what they're hearing in Cincinnati, I always check the animals and see what they do. But for those individuals who feel like nobody else is hearing what they're hearing, then from a medical standpoint, we look for something like tinnitus or tinnitus, where you get sounds in your ears, where you're hearing a high-pitched sound or you're hearing a noise. Pulsatile tinnitus or pulsatile tinnitus is where you're hearing a pulse. That happened to me once, where I just kept hearing a boom, boom, boom. So I could hear my heartbeat in my ear, and that scared me because I thought I was having an aneurysm, a ballooning of a blood vessel, or a very vascular tumor, and I was so scared. So I went, got my MRI. Actually, this pulsatile tinnitus I had for months, because it started after I was addressing a patient with it. And every time a patient tells me something and it gets in my mind, then I start to have the same symptoms. Don't ask. And then I go for my MRI, and I couldn't do anything to get rid of the sound. And as soon as I got rolled out of the MRI and they tell me there's no tumor, there's nothing, it went away. It just went away. So I was pretty happy about that. But if you do hear any sounds, or there's anything that's kind of just, something just doesn't seem right, get yourself checked out. Let us take a look. Is it earwax? Is it fluid in the ear? Is it something in your vents? Is it your neighbor messing with you? And I'm pretty sure there's some people in Cincinnati going, you know what? I could run with this one and have some fun. Hopefully they don't. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I used to work for the EPA. I love the environment. Would I call myself an environmentalist? I think we all, in a way, are environmentalists if we take care of our surroundings, if we try not to pollute the air, if we try not to litter, if we try not to damage other people's breathing space. But I would not probably be considered in this political era an environmentalist. They do far more things that spend much more part of their day recycling, things like that. I try to do my best. But where I feel like a lot of us are not getting credited for our environmental enthusiasm and work to help improve our environment are those of us who take a look at some of the green decisions and green choices and try to bring up, look, this could be risky. There could be an issue that is even worse for the environment than what you're trying to do. And so there's a lot of back and forth as it pertains to electric vehicles. And are electric vehicles what's going to save our planet and stop climate change, even though climate always changes? That's kind of an oxymoron. Climate is always changing. But trends that may produce more severe weather systems. Will electric vehicles be the savior of that, be the Messiah as it pertains to our environment? And when the wildfires were happening during the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, the Kenneth fire in Calabasas, and all the other fires, a big concern I had is Californians were not given the same warnings that Floridians were. When Floridians were and North Carolinians were told, look, we have hurricanes coming. Get your electric vehicle away from your house. Get it to higher ground. If it gets wet, if it gets caught on fire, it could be disastrous. It didn't sound like Californians were given the same advice. So many electric vehicles were in the houses, were in the neighborhoods, and once they caught on fire, they're inextinguishable, especially with the water shortage that firefighters were struggling with. Now we have the electric vehicle cleanup, and the EPA is saying this is an issue. In fact, you're seeing pictures of cars that are being labeled not an EV because our first responders and our federal officials and our cleanup workers need to be very, very cautious around a damaged electric vehicle. Not to mention these batteries, these lithium-ion batteries we're being told by the EPA can be releasing a lot of hazardous material into the air and a lot of toxicity. So Daily Mail is reporting that the federal agencies are right now entering phase 1 of cleaning out the debris that has been piling throughout Los Angeles from the wildfires, and the EPA is tasked with removing the hazardous materials. They say lithium-ion batteries are making up a significant portion of these items, and the EPA worries that they may spontaneously reignite, explode, and emit toxic gases and particulates even now that the fire is out. The EPA incident commander, Steve Kalanog, told the outlet that the aftermath of the Palisades and Eaton fires would likely call for the, quote, largest lithium-ion battery pickup cleanup that has ever happened in the history of the world. Well, makes sense. There's a lot of electric vehicles in California. Now that they're becoming more widespread, yes, this will probably be the biggest lithium-ion battery cleanup. But with that statement, it's implying this hasn't been done before. All right, so scientists better get to work, and you better start collecting data. You need to collect data on how this process is going. What is the nearby air looking like? Because a lot of electric vehicles were burned and were burning and were inextinguishable, which I think might have played a very, very tiny part in why firefighters had to just let certain neighborhoods burn because the fires were inextinguishable at a certain point. And God bless our firefighters for all the great work they did. So the EPA incident commander, Mr. Kellogg, said that handling these shockingly temperamental batteries is no easy task, requires technical sophistication and care. Now, God bless the EPA for having people trained in this. I don't know how much of a crew they have. And they say that the crew handling the dangerous materials must deionize the batteries first so they could be compressed for proper disposal. They have to wear protective gear, fire-resistant clothes masks, and exposure to overheated lithium-ion batteries could be very toxic, not only because of the fire risk, but because of all the chemicals emitted. They say aside from bursting into flames, humans near damaged or overheated batteries could be breathing in dangerous gases that can burn your eyes, digestive tract, skin, etc. Now, according to Los Angeles City Fire Captain Adam Van Gerpen, told NBC News and also reported by Daily Mail, we don't know the long-term effects of all this exposure, and we haven't seen this on this large a scale and this many electric vehicles. He said this is an unprecedented amount of electric vehicles with lithium-ion batteries in there. So how many are we talking? Well, again, this is why I tell everybody to slow their flip and roll. I get that California wanted to mandate zero emission vehicles, none who were non-zero emission vehicles to be sold by the year 2035. I get they wanted to be ahead of the curve and the forefront of the environment, but you're in one of the wildfire capitals of the country. And we know that electric vehicles are difficult to put out, taking tens of thousands of gallons of water from one vehicle. We know that there's toxic gases that could be emitted, just like with a regular car fire. So why didn't we think about this ahead of time? So how many electric vehicles are we talking about? Well, we might not have the exact number of what is being removed and addressed in Southern California, but they say more than 99,000 zero-emission vehicles were sold in LA County alone in 2024. They have the most electric vehicles out of all the states, and they brag about that. They're proud of that. And mind you, I'm not anti-electric vehicle. I think electric vehicles are cool, but are they safe? We've been hearing time after time these batteries have issues, some of them spontaneously having a thermal runaway reaction when they may overheat. We heard, during Buffalo, during the horrible, horrible snowstorm they had a couple years ago, they couldn't warm up their cars or use their cars. And in extreme heat, what about the desert sun? And now if a car is near a fire or in a wildfire zone, why were Californians told to get their electric vehicle as far away from the fire as possible and as far away from their house? I didn't hear any of that education given or those warnings. California Governor Gavin Newsom is an avid champion of EVs. He gave a stamp of approval to the EPA to ban the sale of all gas-powered cars in the state by 2035. Now, LA residents are being warned that the residual heat from the fires could lead to random combustions and that they should be extra careful in the months following the disasters. I would be very nervous. With the lithium-ion batteries, they said, even if they look like they're intact, they could have damage on the inside, so they continue to off-gas, and the off-gas from these batteries could be toxic to your health. Now, we also have lithium-ion batteries in our phones, electronics, vapes, power tools, etc. But the EPA has to now, one, ensure that they're safe, two, that residents are safe, and three, get this stuff cleaned up and out of there. They say phase one involves the EPA handling and clearing out the risky materials. And then phase two, the Army Corps of Engineers has to launch phase two once it's safe to essentially do the removal of the remaining debris. So what happens next? Well, they say phase two could take up to 18 months. Remember I told you don't expect these people to rebuild their homes anytime soon. It's going to take a while. So if you have an electric vehicle, I want you safe. For the most part, it's a safe vehicle. We're seeing amazing things, but they're very temperamental. and overheating and flooding and I guess poor design of just anything, a dud of a battery. These are things that could possibly be dangerous, and I think we did too much too soon. And if they are emitting dangerous chemicals, somebody needs to measure that and let people know so we could kind of readjust and decide what's the best way to move forward. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So should you not give your kids sugar? Should that be a new parental move? Piece of advice. Loyola Medicine, I believe, recommends that children under 2 years old should not get any added sugar to their diet. Our sugar as adults is already too high. I believe the RDA, the recommended dietary guidelines, says our sugar should added sugar should not be given to kids under 2. And over the age of 2, limit your added sugar to less than 10% of your daily calories. So let's say you have a 2,000 calorie diet, no more than 200 calories should be from added sugar. And I know some of you will say, well, that's great. I just had soda, just one soda, so I'm good. Did you have any honey? Did you have any sugar with your coffee? Did you eat out in fast food? Because sugar is added in a lot of that. We're talking about added sugars on top of what might be naturally occurring, like fruits and things like that. So, aim for as little as possible. The American Heart Association is even more strict. They don't like the 10%. They don't want sugars making up more than 6% of your daily calories. So that would be for women, 6 teaspoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons of sugar a day. For men, 9 teaspoons. Now, for some of you going, well, that's a lot because I only put 1 teaspoon of sugar in my coffee. Okay, I mean, is it a big heaping teaspoon? Is it leveled? When you when you bake, okay, I know a lot of us will just rough it because we know how to cook or bake, but you're supposed to level it off, with like a piece of paper or like a fork or something where you level it off. So there's a good chance you're taking in more. So there's a lot of foods that we might not realize that have added sugar. Our breakfast cereals, our baked goods, bars. A lot of your protein bars might have sugar. Certain beverages you drink. Desserts, of course. Yogurt might have sugar. So, this was a very interesting article by Newsner Stories. 10 warning signs you could be eating too much sugar. So one is that you have constant cravings for sweets. Sugar induces your dopamine. So like any other addiction, when your body's not getting sugar, it asks for it. Also, if you're frequently fatigued, if you have low energy. That could be because after you eat sugar and your pancreas is stimulated and the insulin comes out, and then the insulin is trying to take in all the sugar and move it to the cells, or help open the cells for that sugar to go, from the hallway to the office to the room, the bloodstream to the cell. Insulin is like the key. And so your sugar levels, when they drop, you could get tired, you could feel hypoglycemic, and that's because you're eating too much sugar, and your pancreas and your sugar intake is dysregulated because of the amounts you're eating, and you're not normalizing a process that is now becoming very pendulous. You could also get very hungry. A lot of people that eat sugar feel like they're starving, and they just ate. I would eat a candy bar in high school. Somebody was always selling those dollar candy bars for, or maybe at the time they were 50 cents, to make money for the soccer team or whatever. And I would eat that, and you would think you'd be full, and then all of a sudden within a half hour, an hour, I'd be hungry again. Again, that's because of the hypoglycemia you get after the sugar is all moved into the cells. You might have skin issues. If you notice your skin and your hair are not doing that well, that could be a sign of too much sugar. So look at your skin issues. In fact, I have a family member that has bullous pemphigoid. Now, bullous pemphigoid is where they get large blisters on their skin. It doesn't hurt. They just get big, huge blisters. And so what we do to prevent that is we cut back on your sugar. And then there's also steroids and other things. Sometimes we treat with antibiotics. And so this family member now will not eat any sugar, and the condition has not flared. So our skin does get affected. Weight gain, especially around the belly. Sugary foods have empty calories, and they are not providing essential nutrients. You might feel like you're burning them, but oftentimes you eat more than you burn, so it turns into fat for storage. Very interestingly, sugar will incite inflammation. The reason why we worry about diabetes and heart disease is because the sugar molecules can induce inflammation, and inflammation could put you at risk for heart disease as well as other things. Well, it also can make your joint pain and stiffness worse. So if you start to notice that your hands are more stiff, your hips, look at what happens if you cut back your sugar. Brain fog, trouble focusing, they also list. Very difficult to concentrate when you have higher sugar levels. It does impair your brain function, can do so not only temporarily, but long term. So make sure you look at that. Also, too much sugar could affect your gut. So if a lot of you have frequent bloating or digestive issues, saying, yeah, I think it's because I'm eating the vegetables, so I need to cut back on my vegetables. Try cutting back on your sugar first, and maybe increase your fiber, and that might help. People who have too much sugar in their system may also have more frequent colds and infections. Sugar is very sticky, and it's very large, and it clogs up arteries. It clogs up your kidneys. It's even though I know sugar dissolves in water, etc., but the molecules are still large. And these things can interfere with inflammatory cells that need to get where they need to go. And also, sometimes the high sugar state prevents you from having a more robust immune system. So if you're noticing you're getting sick a lot more, cut back on your sugar. And, of course, get yourself checked for diabetes and other things. And interestingly, this is a biggie. Your sugary meal and dessert or late-night cappuccino or your late-night alcohol can cause you to have trouble sleeping. A heavy sugar diet can disrupt your sleep patterns. So you can improve your sleep quality by cutting back on your sugar. So when you look at your digestion, your colds, infections, inflammatory, joint pain, dementia, memory, skin, weight gain, fatigue, cravings, cutting sugar is a good thing, but now how? So I love sugar. I just do. I love sweets. I try not to eat a lot of them. Try not to drink alcohol. It's just wasted calories, a lot of sugar. But if there's something chocolatey, I'm on it. I mean, I have to have chocolate. And it's but I notice that cutting back whenever I'm losing weight, I notice it helps a lot. But if you really need something sweet, There's other things you could do. A big mistake people do is they'll go and open up some Sweet and Low, or they'll drink a diet soda. That could actually make some things worse because your body is thinking there's a lot of sugar coming down the pike, so it shoots out a lot of insulin. And people who drink diet sodas, use artificial sweeteners, can actually get diabetes. They can actually have inflammation of the pancreas. They could get more hungry. They could also gain weight. So I wouldn't do an artificial sweetener. What I would do is, eat some grapes, or maybe have a little bit of honey, or maybe eat some raisins, have some fruit. If you really need something sweet, try to go for something more natural. And also drink a lot of water. And if you're frustrated and you're like, I really need something, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. What I recommend is get a glass of ice. You could pour a little bit of your lemonade or whatever drink you would have drunk in that big, huge glass, but don't fill it up. Let your body think you already drank it already. And then you could suck on the ice. Don't chew the ice. And you feel like you're getting your sweet. You're tricking your body into thinking that it just had a nice sugary thing of lemonade. Now, you really need to train yourself into thinking sugar is bad. I have a friend who had cancer. And she's like, if I eat sugar, my cancer comes back. So that's why I'm not eating sugar. And so it's you kind of need to retrain your brain to not look at sugar. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So I'm going to kind of combine some of your question comments in this next segment. One of you had said that when you date, you're out there, you're Gen X, so you're roughly in my age range, and you want your prospective partner to do STD testing. And when you ask them for that, usually that romance ends pretty quickly. So when to ask for STD testing and how. Another one of our listeners wants to know how to approach the subject with a child who says they're not having sex, but you think they are. One of you thinks your husband might be cheating and you are concerned that you might have an STD. How do you get that tested without them thinking that you got it tested because you're cheating? So, these are very, very good questions. And so I'm going to kind of try to answer them all in this segment. So you're on a date. you like this person. Hopefully, if you met them online, you didn't go to like the most romantic, expensive date. You actually started easy, like coffee, lunch, started to get to know them. And now the relationship has progressed a little bit, and the topic of sex is coming up. Some of you have a 5-date rule. Some of you have a 3-month rule. Some of you are fine with one-night stands. So depending on where you are in the relationship, you should always be concerned about STDs or STIs, sexually transmitted illnesses or sexually transmitted diseases, chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas, syphilis, HIV, hepatitis, B and C. So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of. Herpes. And so bringing it up used to not be that hard. Being that I was dating in the 90s, after what happened in the 80s with HIV, it was a very easy conversation for people to have. They go, look, if you want to have sex, I want to see your, I want to know that you don't have anything, or I want you to use condoms, etc. And so getting STIs or STD screening was not that big a shock, not that, Nowadays, however, many people have been very lackadaisical about it, and we're seeing that with the big rise in STDs. And so you're on a date, and you're like, look, I want this to progress, but I need to know if you have any STIs. And the person says, that's fine. We'll use a condom in the meantime. You're like, nah, I really want to know. Can you go and do that first? Well, you used to be able to go to your doctor and say, will you do that? Now it's a little different. Most people don't have a medical provider. So they have to actually, if they don't have a free, there also used to be free STD clinics. After what happened with HIV, I remember there was a lot of government funding for free STD clinics, so you could get tested, etc. And so those might not be as far and few between now, especially since testing is expensive. So people have to go to an urgent care or go and pay for the testing themselves. There are some labs that'll let you order your own labs. But the only thing is if you are positive for something, you really have to find a doctor right away to treat you. And some telemedicine companies might be able to help, some might not. So now it's a little harder. So you tell somebody on a date, which is what this person did, saying, I want you to get tested. They're like, I don't have the time or money, or forget it. Well, then you know what? You don't need to be with that person. That's actually a great test to see if that person is worth dating. If you bring up how you want to make sure that they don't have an STI and they have a problem with that and they decide to dump you, then you just saved yourself lifelong of misery, because anybody who is going to date you needs to be concerned about your health, is going to want to make sure they don't get you sick, is going to want to protect you. Let's say you want to have children with this person. They obviously don't want you to get something that could affect the baby. So that I think is so I would say bring it up. It's okay. You could say, look, I'm going to do my testing. You do yours, but I really like you, and I can't wait for this to be a part of our relationship on a regular basis. But before we, do that, I'd feel more comfortable seeing your panel. And if they at all say no, hell no, you got your answer. That would be my suggestion. And I think bringing it up is absolutely fine. In fact, it's kind of a compliment that you want to have sex with them, and you want to have sex with them freely. I still use condoms, because tests could still miss things if it's too early. But the fact that you want to do that with them is a huge plus. Okay, but yeah, you want to know if they have a disease. So absolutely, I think that's appropriate. If you have a child who you think a teenager is sleeping and having sex or is sexually active, shall we say, and they are saying they don't have sex, there's a very easy way to handle that. Very easy way. And I used to do that, as a medical professional. We medical providers are very well versed on how to handle that. So if you have the conversation, and your child says, I'm not having sex, right? You can tell them you believe them. I say, I just want you to know you could come to me and you could talk to me. But then if they are teenagers, especially, they're going through puberty, their physicals might, still need to be done. I think they all should be done. Doesn't necessarily mean they need to have pap smears. But if you, let's say, have a daughter, you could say, I'd like you to, do you still want to go to the pediatrician, or would you like starting to see, now that you're kind of going through your grown-up stuff, I want you to meet, a gynecologist. You could meet mine, or you could, if you feel more comfortable, going to their partner. And then as a parent, you do get a chance to talk to the medical provider. You aren't necessarily always in the room, but you could tell that medical provider if you do have some concerns. And you could say, look, I don't know if they're sexually active. If they don't feel comfortable talking to you, that's fine. But if they do feel comfortable, I just want to make sure they're safe. And oftentimes, the teenager will talk to the medical provider. The medical provider has to promise, privacy, et cetera, unless, of course, there's something that's life-threatening. But get the medical provider involved. And we could have the conversation. And we could say, look, these are some things you need to be aware of. I'm glad you're not sexually active, but if you are, you should get tested for X, Y, and Z. These are signs I want you to look for, and concerns that STDs could have on your future fertility, et cetera, would be X, Y, and Z. And so you make sure you come to me so I can at least help you and, use condoms, et cetera. So we can at least have these conversations. And I'm going to tell you 90% of the time, plus, these teenagers say, yeah, I think I need to, be checked. And, you're getting examined. Teenagers are like, well, how the hell do I tell my mom if she sees the bill? When they see a lab bill, they might not necessarily see what the tests were. And if there were tests done, we used to always, on pelvic exams, always check for STIs. It was routine. That was just routine. It wasn't because we thought you had an STD. So we would offer routine testing anyway. And so that's something so now you want to be tested because you think your spouse is cheating. But you're afraid somebody's going to see this and think that you were the one cheating. Again, this is the doctor's panel. They want to ensure that we don't have hepatitis. They want to ensure, I was having a little burning. They were worried about my prostate. And so it was routine for them to check gonorrhea and chlamydia, because some prostatitis could be caused by that. I'm not cheating. They wanted to do the test. I told them they didn't need to, but they did the test, and you see nothing. Your spouse is going to be happier that you don't have anything. If you do have something, you got some splaining to do. But also, there's something wrong with the relationship if you fear getting testing done for something and them freaking out about that. If your doctor wants you to be tested and they're worried about your health, that should come first. But if you do feel like your spouse could be cheating on you and you feel like you're being exposed, you and your spouse need to get to counseling. You need to know, because you need to know if you need to use condoms. You have to protect yourself. But you have to come first. Get yourself checked. It's just not where, and it could be also your spouse is naive. They might not be thinking they could get something, and you're like, look, you're getting exposed. You need to be aware of this. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA1. That's 800-JBS-USA1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA1 today.